Alright, in this video we will create API. So we'll be creating two API, one API for getting the values from the database. As you can see, these data are coming from the database from this table. So we'll be creating a API that will output the JSON value, and that JSON value will be using it and displaying it in the form of table. So this is one API which fetches the value, and the other API to add the value into the table. So let's say I'm passing name at the rate gmail.com. I am passing password. If I click on add, with the help of API, it will add it to the table. So if I click on this browse button, you'll see the latest added credentials got saved into the database. Again, this is also by API. So we'll be creating API in PHP, basically two API, one for get request which receives all the values which is in the table, and one to add the data into the table. So you see here, and I'm using post. So these are the two API that we would be creating. I am using XAMPP. That's the reason why you could see PHP myadmin, which is MySQL, and we can hit a URL and you'll get a JSON request, and this is coming from this API. You see the JSON value. Cool. Without wasting time, let me open a new project. We already have test. We'll be starting everything from scratch. We don't need style.css for this. We need Bootstrap. For that, let me add a CDN. There are other ways of adding Bootstrap, but this is the simpler one. Since our focus is only on API creation, I'm just adding the CDN for the Bootstrap. Now for the app, let me remove all the code and just return a simple h1. It would just say some text. If I run this app, npm run dev. Now you should see a new project in the browser. As of now, it's saying that this file could not found. That's the reason. Now you see the welcome text from the app component. Cool. Now over here in the app.jsx, let me add a new component for the user list. We'll name it as user list.jsx, and we will be creating a function and we will be exporting as well. Now it should return an HTML, and that HTML would be like a table. Now in place of app.jsx, we can simply call our user list component. Cool. Make sure you have imported the user list as well. And now the flow would be your main.jsx will run. It will call the app component, and app component will call the user list component, and user list component will display the table. So this table has name, email, and password. If you want, you can just surround them inside container. leave it as it is, or else we'll just copy paste this and make sure this div gets closed, and we'll give class container so that we can see some padding on the left and right. Now what do we need? We need to fetch the value from the API and display it over here. Whenever we would be fetching an API, the best hook is useEffect hook. We'll call the useEffect, and useEffect should run only once. That's why I'm passing empty array, and we'll be using fetch, and these data should get stored somewhere. So for storing in React, we'll be using state. So let's use state, and you can update it over here instead of instead of logging it, and this is the place where we will be using our API. So I have already written the API in C XAMPP htdocs API v1.api. Make sure your XAMPP is running, and it's running. MySQL is running on this port for my API, which is 3306. So you can see I have passed 3306. Now these things are required because our API is running in different server and our npm is running in different server. So you can see this is running on port 8080 and this is running on port 5170. To make this possible, I'm using this access control allow origin. Without it, you'll get a coarse error. That's one thing. The second thing is any header is allowed, and this is any method is allowed. We'll be using get post usually, so that's the reason it says any method allow. And header is something when you send something to an API, it will know from where you are sending, from which browser you are sending. That's one thing, and what you are sending, it's another thing. I will be sending JSON, and in what way you are sending, whether it's HTTP1, HTTP2. Based on that, I want everything to be allowed. That's the reason I am passing any header, any origin. Any origin means any domain, any header, and any method is allowed. Second thing is I'm connecting with the database, and I'm understanding which method it is, either it's get method or post method. So if it is post method, then query the database, select all from the user table, which is I have named it as sample user. You can see sample user, and order by ID descending, and I'm passing the query. Now we would be getting the data in the form of associative array, and we have stored the data in an array called data, and I am exporting. So when I hit the URL, we would be getting the data in the form of JSON. So that's the reason you see this. Now in our user list, we have already used API, so we'll be getting this value. It's an array which has multiple objects, and it would be stored into the state called user. Now we can use this user and display it over here. I'm using the user state and using the map function and fetching the individual object and getting the name, email, and password. And displaying it with the help of map function. Now if you see, if everything goes well, we should not get any error. So if there is an error, you can check it in the console. It says useState is not defined. That's very common error. Whenever you are using state or useEffect, you have to first import it. So now you see the fetch API works perfectly. So this is the API that we have created, and we are fetching those values with the help of this component, and we are displaying it. So whenever I hit the home URL, you'll see this. But how are we going to add the routing? For routing, we need to install a package. Let me stop the server, or you can click on this and start npm install react hyphen dom. It will take some time, and it says found zero vulnerability. That means it got added. So to cross check, we can simply look at this JSON dot package dot JSON, where you'll find the React router DOM got initialized. Now in the place of app component, here we can use that route. So let's use that. So now what we have to do is we would be using route in the sense, when I hit home URL, I should get all the values displayed in the form of table. When I hit add on the URL, I should see a form. So for that, I'll be using this component by React. Whenever I use this, make sure I import it at the top, just like how we have used useState and user list. I have imported browser, so this is for the browser dot, and this is the parent which holds all your child route. So when I hit slash, I want not return created add component add dot jsx. So export default, in this case it's add. We can simply say add user as an heading. So if our route works, you should see add in the URL, it should properly take you to the add route, which just displays add user text. Now over here we would be adding form. Let me just copy paste the form. So let's paste the form, and in the form I have added some function. Let me just remove those so I can show you how the output looks like. So this is how the form is. So when I search for add, a relevant form shows up. When I hit the base URL, you'll see the list from the table. Cool. Now let's add the onChange function. So what onChange function should do? We need to create a state, and that state will accept object. And object of what? Object of these input field. So let's do that. And let's just store this. So as said, we are creating an object. So we are passing an object in curly brace, name, email and password. So these states should be populated once I try to enter something. So let's create a function for handle change, and it will accept parameter e, and we would be setting the state. So when setting the state, we will be using this function set user. So set user will first destructure what is actually there, and based on the name, this is name and this is value of what we would be submitting, name and value. Based on the name and value, it would get populated. So let's check. Handle change is not defined. Yes, it's defined. useState is not defined. We have not imported it. Yes. useState is not defined that. We have already defined it. Cool. Now if I get into components, we are in add. As of now the state is blank. Let's try adding something. So you see, based on what I type, the state gets populated. Name, email, and some password. So you see, the state got updated. Now what we need to insert what we actually have it in the state. So to insert, we need to first create a function on submit. We need to call a function, sorry, we need to define the function, and we submit. Let me autocomplete this. So first what I need is, when I click on submit button, I don't want page to get load. For that, e.prevent default, and which API should I hit? So the API which I have listed here, v1.php, and I would be passing header information like what method and what header, content type is JSON, and what I would be submitting, I would be submitting the state value, which is user. I'm passing the state value, and rest is the response. Let me just show you what is there on the post. If the method is post, as you see, I'd be getting the post. I would be understanding when I hit the URL, I would be understanding what method it is by this line, and I know that it is post. And now I'll get the input value and I'll compare it. I'll be getting the form data. These are name, and these are column name, and I will be running a insert query on the table sample user, and I'll be executing the query, and if the data gets stored properly, I'm sending the message success, it's done, success done. Now I will be getting this response in the over here. I will be checking if the data is done, then redirect me to the main route, which is user list. So over here we have seen, when there is a hit of the base URL, it will take me to the user list. Let's try adding. So this is the actual data. Let's try inserting some unique value. Let's say jesse@gmail.com. If I click on add, you got redirected to the base URL, and you see Jesse got inserted. And if you hit the API, you could see the least recently added at the top of the list, because we have ordered, we have seen in the get request, we have made it as this ID as a descending. So the bigger one, the larger number of ID will show at first. That's how we have made the get request. That's what we got. In the table also you should see Jesse got inserted, but these are in the form of ascending order. I hope I have made clear how to create API for getting all the values from the table, and the second thing is how to insert value into the table with the help of API. That's all for this video.